managerial competence. I would probably like to think that the same applies in large measure to a startup. But what differentiates? What's important, as Dr. Santrup Mishra said, is also that we need to have capital. Others have said you need to have the people. But what differentiates it? I think the most important couple of things is innovation and entrepreneurship. The core, the entire core of startup ecosystem, I would personally think, lies at the ideas. The ideas, as Dr. Mishra said, ideas are important, the entrepreneur is important, and that's implicit in these two words that I mentioned. The ideation that has to take place, I think, has a lot to do with the educational system that we have followed over a period of time since long, which is a legacy of the British system. It's largely isomorphic, mimetic, that you try to repeat, you try to mimic something, nothing new. Now that has to change. When we talk about ecosystems, I have gone through the ecosystems that's currently prevalent in India, currently prevalent in Odisha. I'll talk about Odisha a little later. I was fascinated by something which I experienced myself during the elections. A particular company came up to us and said that we want to use augmented reality to take Amar Patnaik to every household in Odisha. Now, similar kind of ideation is something which I thought is not coming out from our education system. So I would probably like to think that while Skill India is all right, skilling ecosystem being improved is all right, the most important thing that we have to probably do is to improve this educational system both at the secondary school level and the higher secondary school level and at the university level. Why I emphasize secondary and higher secondary level is most of the innovations, most of the path-breaking, disruptive innovations that have taken place in this world have been done by people who are young and who have most often probably not had great education. It's not to say that great education is not required to have innovations. So I say that the entire system of our educational eco-hub has to change. And that's where I think the investment should equally be made. Now, coming to the startup system, in Odisha, when we developed our policy, Honorable Chief Minister said that there are three things important. The three things, very goal-based, the three things that were important is that we want to be within the top 3 leaders of the country in startup. We want to have 1,000 startups by 2020, and we want to have 33% women entrepreneurs. This is path-breaking, and let me tell you, what's the result today? The result today is that we have about 570 registered startups, out of which 100 plus are women entrepreneurs. We have startups in the health sector, in the rural development sector, in the agriculture sector, in the IT-enabled services. I also have to I have to flag one issue here. What's significant is these ideas, which have to germinate to give rise to a startup, should not necessarily be in the IT and IT-enabled space. Because what is India's worry is when we say that the contribution of our agriculture to the GDP is so low compared to what it used to be 100 years ago. As I said in my speech, the potential is huge because we have actually transformed the ecosystem now end to end, in the sense starting from the production stage, so infuse capital and then give confidence to the investor or to the startup entrepreneur that his project will be taken forward, handhold support, marketing support. So I see a very bright future for Odisha because the ideas are there and the immensely, I think, capable manpower is there, and the the manufacturing hubs and incubation centers have been created. So now it's a question of, I think we've reached a stage where it can take off really, 570 have been set up so far. We have a target of 1,000 by 2020. And I see there's a kind of a, the zing thing is there about startups in Odisha. I have been born and brought up there, so I see that that thing is there. The young crowd is actually hooked onto it. So hopefully this should change the image that Odisha has in India, that nothing really moves there or no new ideas come from there. So I have a feeling that Odisha would probably eventually be the center of startups in India, not only in terms of financial technologies or in terms of IT, but even in agriculture sector where we are doing pretty new ideas are coming in.